Folks, for just $5 a month, you too can find a home for these wayward cows that are just much, much too noisy to move into my own home. Because did you know that there's no muffling blocks in this mod pack? It is not amazing. So please, for just $5, won't you think of the cows? Or maybe some hamburger? Hello everybody, I'm Martin. Welcome to another episode of Statech Industry. And boy, have I been busy just non-stop gathering materials. Digging, mining, digging some more clay, which, well, I could do without that. No, I went and found this geode when I was actually exploring for lava. And this is a topaz geode, which means it's nice and shiny and blue and near the surface. We, however, are not going to do anything with this yet. I also found some amethyst shards while I was out exploring in a chest, which means we have basically opened up the World of Magic chapter, although I do need to go chip some of these topaz shards off of these budding clusters that I, of course, brought home. But I'm not too concerned about that now because what is the name of this pack? That's right, industry, which is not magic. We'll go to this in another episode, I swear. But if we come back inside my base, you can see that I have made quite a few changes and have expanded and cleaned up at least this forefront area of the base. And not all of this is strictly cosmetic. We've actually got quite a bit of functionality, and I needed a lot of materials to get started on this week's episode, part of which necessitated making an enchanting table, because I wanted a fortune pickaxe to go mining with. Yeah, that's right, I have a humongous tunnel bore, and I still did this because I needed a better drop rate out of the copper and the diamonds. But if we come into the enchanting table, this is not the normal vanilla one. There have been some changes. If we just toss something random in here, you can see that while this part looks the same, there's now this reroll enchants button up here that spends a small amount of experience in a lapis to, well, recycle this, which is how I got fortune so easily on this. And oh my lord, did I get an insane iron hammer. I only wanted the unbreaking. The silk touch and the efficiency were just bonuses. We're not going to complain when things go right, okay? But that's not the only set of changes here today, because as you can see, there are quite a few more drawers that are all populated with a whole bunch of different materials and crafting subcombines sitting right here. Yes, and a machine labeled lubricant, because it still has lubricant and creosote in it, and I can't move it, okay? There's just way too much to bucket out. I've already got 2 tanks sitting in the back. I gave up, okay? I gave up. It'll move eventually. But if we come back into this area, you can see that there are now a lot of machines back here, all with their own specialized pipelines making stuff. And they're in these clusters of 2 here, because that's the easiest way to lay this out. But there's so many, and we're running out of room back here. Like, we are seriously starting to run out of room. I'm actually not sure what we're going to do other than expand to another part of the base pretty soon, because I just don't have much more, although I can probably fit some in behind these furnaces back here. Maybe I can use some of that space. And while I'm piping them into all these drawers manually right now, which they're all filtered for their specific things in the drawers, I realized I probably should just be using these drawer access points, because there are fairly large filters on this, and I can just use more, and these are cheap to make. So that way I can actually move these drawers around when I need to. But logistics was last week's topic, and we don't want to continue boring you with that, right? We've already discussed this. We should move on to today's topic, which is creating machines that do resource generation. And honestly, there's 2 things we want to do to go about doing that. One, while I've got the fire clay bricks automated now, which I need for a lot of the machines coming up, I don't actually have the means to get clay. You saw me digging it up, but I don't actually have the means to create it from thin air, which I really would like. So over here, you can see I've started setting up some create stuff, including right under the stairwell, a whole bunch of water wheels. And if we come back here, you can see that, yep, it's just water wheels. And we come back into this room back here, you can see that I have set up the mixer and, well, behind that wall, a deployer. And that was because the very first thing I want to do today is fabricate clay. And honestly, I have 2 ways I could do that. One, I could use a mixer from Modern Industrialization with some sand and some water to create it, which, okay, yeah, that's decent, but then I have to deal with pumping water in from somewhere and handling that whole mess. And that just seems like, Alternately, I can use create to bulk wash it from sand. I don't know what this 20% means right here and here. I don't know if we just have to wait for it to actually create it on a belt or not. We'll have to test that out. But to get this, we need to create sand, which we can do with create crushing wheels, because we can do it from gravel, which we can do from cobblestone. And while I made a create cobblestone generator that's using vanilla mechanics, I mean, we might as well just make the actual cobblegen block now that it's reasonably cheap to make, huh? That seems like probably a smarter idea. And then I can always upgrade it if I really need more. It just requires more of these blocks and some gold. Oh, and a basic machine hull. No, I can't do this, not yet. Okay, we'll go with the slow one unless I revert back to vanilla. We'll have to see. But to make the crushing wheels, we need to make a big, huge mechanical crafter from 21 of these mechanical crafters. And these require electron tubes and brass casings. Well, the brass is handled by this mixer right here, because that's all that this does. This hopper takes in copper and zinc, tosses it in there, and this spits out the brass. So that part's covered. And you might think, Ard, you have a deployer set up here. This must be to automatically create those brass casings really, really easily. Well, I would need to be automating stripped logs too. So no, that's not what this was for at all. This was for something completely different. This was so that I could manually make a rotation speed controller, which requires a precision mechanism, this thing right here, which requires stamping 5 cogwheels, 5 large cogwheels, and 5 iron nuggets in sequence onto a gold plate, and it might actually just not work right. So I figured I could either automate that and figure out a way to make a production chain, or I could just not care until I figured out how many times I'm actually going to need this. So I just tossed a lever up on it and just swapped things in as to get all 15 items into it, and it came out right the first time. But that means I can now convert all of the power from those water wheels into a high-speed system for these, although I've got it cranked down right now, because if I crank this all the way up, it's just kind of nauseating to look at, although it doesn't really, you don't really see it for the most part. But it was frankly just more than I needed for anything I'm normally doing around here anyways. So we have the struts for a basic crate setup. Let me go get the mechanical crafter made so that we can get on to the next step and get the crushing wheels made so I can figure out that whole mess. I ran out of redstone. Okay, I guess I am going to use the deployer. Sandpaper away. Oh, I made entirely too many of these. Oops. All right, assuming I understand how this works, I should put this in here and flip that to turn on the clutch, and it's not working. Okay, it turns out I was just overstressed, so take 2. Flick this lever to turn on the clutch, and it should combine, and yep, here they go. So I'm glad to know that that worked and was just stressing out that gear. And crushing wheel number 1. Oh, I guess we can cover that gear back up now. All right, behold. Half of the plan. It's kind of clunky, but it does work. We've got the cobble gen up top dumping out cobblestone on the top pair of crushing wheels, which turns into gravel, which dumps into the second pile, which dumps it into the chute and puts it into this drawer right here. Now you notice that there's a whole bunch of these gear shifts reversing the flow of the shafts because these need to be going in opposite directions, and this was already going in the wrong direction. So this flips it once, which puts this one in the correct direction for this. We flip it again right here to flip this one around. And then above each of these, they also reverse for some reason that I'm completely unaware of, and requires gear shifts here to go up to here as well, and on the other side also. Thankfully, gear shifts are cheap. Now my problem is I am basically at my max roof size here right now, although I could probably move it all up one and put the brass funnel off the side of the cobble gen, and that might give me a little bit more room, but I've got to find some way to get in a belt with an encased fan yet still. So, I'm not sure if this is going to work, or if I'm going to have to just pipe these over and put them in a Modern Industrialization mixer. We'll figure something out. And folks, let me present the most janky solution I could possibly come up with. I'm going to call this good for now, but I am not proud of what I've done here. So what we have is cobble gen to crushers to chute to drawers to drawer connectors to the drawer access point to a brass funnel dumping things onto this belt to be washed. In addition to that, we have connected to this network of shafts and not this one. We have the belt that's taking all of the sand, clay, and flint coming out of this and processing it. And it turns out what 25% chance mean is there's a 25% chance it turns the sand into clay or just destroys it. So we're getting a trickle feed of it. It could be faster, but as I have said in the past, I will not complain about free, especially since we really just need a trickle charge to keep our processing for the fire clay bricks going. Now I need to run drawer connector over all the way down under here so that it lines up with all of the rest of this so that it can actually be pulled in. That part's at least easy. That just requires digging up everything. All right, and now that we've got that one very convoluted piece of resource generation nailed away and taken care of, let's move on to the much, much more important one that is actually relatively simple to make, although it requires a whole lot of steel. And by that, I mean the steam quarry, which, as you can see, this is already checked off because I've already made all of the pieces. And it took somewhere along the case of 170 steel or thereabouts, might have been a bit less. It was pretty obnoxious considering I had one blast furnace for most of this. I actually just made the other one while I was setting up this area. So we've at least got everything made for this. And overall, its structure is pretty easy to make. It's just a bunch of machine blocks and then the pipe blocks up here and a chain down the middle. Alright, despite placing the chains wrong in this a couple times, be careful when putting them in, this is now all set up and just ugly. As you can see, we have a valid structure. So I was about to go hook up all the pipes to this, and I discovered that there is a cave directly under this that I'm going to have to go fill in at least the top layer on. Why is nothing ever easy? What cave? I don't know what you're talking about, because now we can at least hook up the pipes. And we're basically doing the same thing we did the other time when we're just running all of the inputs and outputs into this drawer access point to get into our multiple drawers above it. And now to run some power into it. And if we come back out here, you realize we can't actually access the controller because we buried it. Oops. And you know what? This is fine because we're going to need one more drawer here anyways, which will at least bring the symmetry back, because you notice that this is still not actually running. And that's because the steam quarry can actually output 3 different sets of things, and it requires a consumable item to do it, these drills. Now, of these, it's just ores, which is what we want, create type blocks as well as zinc, and then just normal stone blocks. We don't really care about any of those other than the ores right now. And these require bronze drills, which have a 4% chance of being consumed every time they activate. But thankfully, they aren't that expensive to make other than needing pipes. Our problem is that we can't automate those yet because we don't have assemblers, so we're going to have to make a bunch of them and stock them in the drawer. So let me go make a handful of them so we can get started on this. All right, so I got 16 of them made for now, which was only 4 batches of them because I keep most of my inventory reserves back here set a little too low because I was still doing all of my mining manually. Nothing was getting passively replaced. After I get the steam quarry up and maybe make a second one, I can probably increase those numbers once I'm able to automatically make the drills. But for now, let's grab one of those drills and let's get the input automated. So we'll put that in there and over in the input over here. Now if we check the input hatch, yep, they're all loaded in. Toss the other one in for good measure and come back out here and we can see that it is now running. And I think it's even showing us what it's currently mining for. That's awesome. But it means we need to come into these output hatches, grab the items and add those to the filters as well, and make homes for them in the chests here. So it looks like we've got quite a few rewards to turn in. So let's mash the button and see what we get. Haha, free bronze drills, but that was probably from making the drill. A bunch of random crate stuff and these aqua dashers. Well, that's fancy. Even looks pretty fancy. But that unfortunately means we also have a couple more things to turn in here, but this one looks a lot less exciting, although it gave me a rotation speed controller for free, and that's expensive, so I'll take that. And with that, folks, we have everything automated for ore production. Now I just need to clean up this area and make it a little more prettier, because it's just not. But we can work on that. And I probably want to add a second one of these at some point, assuming I can scrape together enough steel, although I should be able to wall share the right side of that. But now, after I'm able to finally automate making those drills, we should be able to do this all automatically with no effort on my part, and that should make things a whole boatload easier. But now at least I can do less mining, and that frankly is more exciting than anything else I've got going on right now. Anyhow, if you found this episode interesting and entertaining, please consider like or subscribe if you're new. As always, I'm Arg. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.